Control up R. Should have known. All right, guys. So this is official. So I want to talk about the clear. Okay. So let's go through some little things to make sure that we understand. Okay. So we are going to have the red team and the blue team. So the red team will be X's. Okay. All right. So there are on the red team. Okay. Let's just say in general, they have 3 defensemen, okay? 3 attackmen and a goalie, okay? So the rule is, and this is important that you guys know because I'm just going to really make this as simple as I can, okay? On one half of the field, on your defensive half, you must have 4 players, okay? So it doesn't matter who those 4 players are. So like, let's say this is a D-man. He's allowed to go over, but if that happens, then a midfielder needs to stay in his place. Okay? So that's why you hear coaches yell midi back, because the pole is going to step over. Okay? There's, in our clear, you want to, if a pole steps over, you want 2 middies to stay back. And we'll explain that. It'll probably have to be another video if I do it next week. All right. So the goalie, okay, the goalie is allowed to step over. Okay. And if the goalie goes over, right, then you have to have a midi step over for him. Okay. So the whole rule is I have to have 4 players on one side of the field. Okay. The other thing is I have to have, this is usually attack. I have to have 3 players on the offensive side of the field at all times. And if there are not 3 players on the offensive side of the field, okay, it is a penalty. So one thing that you guys might not know, so let's say they're clearing and then somebody goes off sides. They don't count the number of guys over here. They don't count and see that there's 7 here. They actually look back and make sure that there's 4 here, right? They actually count the guys that are left behind, which is why when there's 11 players on the field, they catch it really slow. Okay, so if there's 10 players on the field and only three are back and 7 go over, the ref catches it pretty quick because the way they catch it is by counting the number of guys that are behind the play. Okay, now the last 3 guys can be on either side. Okay, so they're typically called midfielders. So they can play offense or they can play defense. They can do both. So there's 3 guys that are allowed to go on both sides. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that, okay? Because that is a big part of the rule, okay? Now, let me undo a bunch of stuff. All right, what does this have to do with us, okay? So the first thing I want you to understand is you have the 3 midfielders and the 4 defensive players that are clearing, which is 7 guys. You have the 3 attackmen and the other team's 3 defenders that are riding, right? So it's 6 guys. So you're clearing 7 on 6. So our clear kind of goes in 3 parts. So I'm going to go through this slow, okay? So the first thing I would have to say, and again, coaches, please, if I'm missing something, or even guys that have played for me before. All right, so the box is right here, okay? So where the box is a big thing. So the first part of the clear is the 70 clearing drill. So I want to have a defenseman right here. I want the goalie to be right here. And I want to have a defenseman right here, okay? So there's 3 guys right there. I am going to take my long stick midi right? And I'm going to use him to stretch the field. Okay? Now, I'm going to take my other D midi off. My other defenseman, and I'm going to put him here. Okay? And that leaves the two middies. Now, this spot right here, anywhere in this third of the field is the two spot. Okay? Anywhere in that third of the field is the two spot. It is not near the box. Okay, and I'll explain to you what's going on in the box in a second. Now, this is the thing that's weird. Anywhere in that circle is the one spot. Okay? Anywhere. Right? And this is one thing, right? I've seen kids that catch it like literally, it's like the goalie like underhand tosses it to them. Right? I've seen guys that are sprinting up the field and catch it over their shoulder. Sometimes what will happen is, especially in man down, this guy is coached to catch the ball like right here. Okay? So the one spot is anywhere in here. Okay? And, all right, just so we're clear, we can name these spots. Okay? So this spot is called the 2. This spot is called the 1. This spot is called the up. And this spot is called the box. Okay? So we want to, if you're the goalie, okay, you make a save. I would look straight up the field and see if the long stick midi, a lot of times they see a pole there and don't cover him. Right? So you just throw it to him and we got a fast break. Okay? If it's not there, look at the 1. Okay? And if the 1's not there, that's probably getting close to 4 seconds. Come out the back. Okay? Don't step forward because that gives the attack a chance to jump here. Okay? All right. Next thing before I get there, all right, is our attack are also part of the clear. Okay? Because I want an attackman to be in this corner. I want an attackman to be in this corner. And I want an attackman to be in the middle. And again, if you are lazy people, if you are lazy boy lacrosse players and you hang out here, then what's going to happen is that lets one guy cover 2, and then we lose our advantage of 76. So I need you guys to pull your guys down with you and cover you. Okay? So you need to make sure you understand, right? So this is how our clear starts. Okay? This is what we practice in the 70 clearing drill. So when we're done with the 70 clearing drill, right, this is what it's called. Okay? So the reason it's called the 70 clearing drill is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in here. Do you guys see that? Okay? So that's the 70 clearing drill. The other thing is, this is also, you can see why we call it the diamond clear, because these guys are all in the shape of a diamond. Okay? Questions about what I've just put up on the board? Attackman, are you part of the clear?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Right? You have to push down. You can't just hang out and see if they get the ball to you. Okay? Especially when it becomes a 10-man, which is probably about 2 or 3 years away for us, but maybe one day. All right, so I'm going to clear all the drawings. All right, so that's part 1 of the clear. Now we get to part 2 of the clear. Okay? Now we get to part 2 of the clear. So part 2 of the clear, okay? The goalie who is here is going to walk up to here. Okay? The D-man who is here is going to walk up to here. Okay? And the D-man who is here is going to walk up to here, right? the D-man who is here is going to step off, and I'm going to put on a midi. Okay? The midi who is here is going to be here. The midi who is in the 1 is now going to go to where the X is on the field. And the long stick midi is going to stay here in the up. Okay? So, part 2 of the clear. Part 2 of the clear is going to look like this. It's going to be midi, 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 D, goalie, D. Okay, do you guys understand? All right, now here's where, right, this is something you guys have to understand. This guy, okay, he is going to, this guy, basically the whole clear is designed for him to get the ball. So I would say he's going to get the ball 80% of the time. But so the ball is here. So he wants to do a cut that we call a slice. So he's going to cut at a 45-degree angle. Okay? He's going to cut at a 45-degree angle so that this guy can see him. And if he has an attackman, which happened like 4 times yesterday, if he has an attackman covering him, the attackman isn't going to be able to go over with him. Okay, he's going to throw him the ball, and it's cleared. Okay, that's why it's called. I mean, that's why we call this cut the slice. Okay, so we need for him. Use your words, Mr. Cubic. We need for him to slice. Here, we'll put it in quotes. We need, that cut's called the slice. Now, this is where, right, everyone needs to be smart. So this guy right here, right, Coach Cubic told me to go, right, almost all the way to the other team's restraining box. And here I am. Well, what happens is the guy who's covering you is definitely going to be a midi, and he's usually going to be a long stick midi. And he's like, I don't want to cover the pole, right? So what he's going to want to do is leave you and jump this slice. So now here's the problem. No one's covering you. So when this midi slices, this guy is going to slice the opposite direction so that they're split in 2, and there's no human being on earth that can cover both of them. It's very important that both of these guys demand their own defender. Okay? So he steps over, he goes opposite. Now, if he slices this way, right, this guy would go to this side. So there's 2 circles. One of them is going to have the slice, and the other one's going to have the up in it. Okay? And you can't be close to each other. If one guy is covering both of you, Coach Cubic is going to yell. Okay, that should never, ever, ever happen. Okay, so what ends up happening, okay, let me undo a bunch of stuff here. Okay, we get to the next part of the clear. Okay, so this is part 2B. Okay, hold on, redo. Okay, so let me get the eraser. Okay, so the last part of the clear is going to look like this. Right? Slice, long stick midi, right? They're opposite each other so that one guy can't possibly ever cover both of them. Okay? Attackman in the corner, attackman deep, attackman low. Okay? So now, this is where you have to use your brain holes. And this is where I think we have our meltdown. Okay? So they're not doing a 10-man or something funky. They're not matching feet. So they're probably going to have a defenseman on this attackman, a defenseman on this attackman, a defenseman, and they're not going to be all the way down there. He'll probably drop you off somewhere around GLE. Okay? All right, now, that those 4 guys that have to be on this field, that's the rule. So now they have 6 guys left, okay? They have 3 middies and they have 3 attack, okay? So I think that they're gonna have a midi on him. Why? Why? Anyone? Coach? Why is he gonna have a midi on him?
Because the attackman can't cross over the midfield.
Yeah. Right? And this guy's gonna have a midi on him. Why do I know that? Not somebody that's not a coach.
The attackman can't cross midfield.
Attackman can't go over. Okay? So this is where you guys are kind of getting me crazy. All right. So they have, right? 4 guys left. They have a midi and 3 attackmen. Okay? So let's say they put, right, their midi on him. Well, that means that this guy's going to have an attackman on him, right? And they're going to have to somehow ride these 3 guys with 2 attackmen, okay? So let's say this is what it looks like, and the ball is right here. New color, there it is, okay? So the ball's here. All right, so now this is where the next thing comes. This cut, right? And coach gave a name to it. It is called a stretch. Now, I have to say, coach and I were kind of amazed. Okay, so if you step over and you're covered by that guy, okay? If you step over and you're covered by that guy, he's a midi. If someone is covering you on this half of the field, anywhere over here, from there over, if anyone is covering you on this half of the field, he's a midi. He's a midi, right? So yesterday, Yoda steps over the field and he's covered. And he's like, and coach turns to him, is he a midi or attack? And he's like, attack. And he goes, are attackmen allowed to step over? And he said, no. So he says, all right, go back. And he goes back and he cuts over and the guy stays on him. And he says, is he midi or attack? And he's like, he's attack. Right? And he's like, can attackman step over? And he's like, no. So he's like, well, is he midi or attack then? He's like, well, he's attack. Hasn't he followed you over? Yes. Is he midi or attack? He's attack, right? What do you want me to tell you? If he is allowed to cover you on this side of the field, he is a midfielder. He is a midfielder. Okay? So here's my point. You don't have to cut all the way down here to see if he's a midi. All you need to do is take a step over. If you see him put a foot on this side of the line, right? He's a midi. So if he's a midi, next step, communicate, right? Here, look, here's the guy. Here's my imitation of what I want you to do. You can point with your stick. And then we can say this word, over there. Not here. He's a midi. That side. Okay? And this is one thing you need to understand. I'll probably be standing over here on the sideline, and I'm going to say one of 2 things. Right? I'm going to be screaming. I don't know if you know this. I'm a little bit of a yeller. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I'm going to be saying either this or that. So if it's this side, we're gonna go this side, and if it's that side, we're gonna go that side. This and that being where I'm standing. Now, one last thing here, okay? Every game that you play in high school, right, is gonna have a scout. And so one of the attackmen is gonna be number 4. And one of the attackmen is gonna be number 7. And one of their attackmen is gonna be number 12. So you look at the guy covering you, you're like, is he a midi or attackman? Right? And he's wearing the number 33, and you're like, 33, that's a midi number. It's not this side, right? So yesterday, back to make fun of Yoda, okay, right? Yesterday, he stepped over, right? And he was being covered by like Maddox or some, I don't know, it was a different time, right? And so he doesn't know if Maddox is a midi or attack. Maddox is an attackman, right? If Connor Lee is covering you, Connor Lee is an attackman. So you can look and see who the man is who's on you and identify, right, if he's a midi or an attackman.
You can do that before you even clear the ball.
Yeah, you can do that while the defenseman's picking up the ball.
You say, it's me, I have the attackman.
Yeah, and I'll remember, it was this guy right here.
It was McAndrew.
McAndrew had Maddox on him,
We watched them switch.
right? And I yelled at him, I'm like, if they clear this in one pass, I'm gonna be upset. And they put Maddox right here on McAndrew. And McAndrew was this guy. So McAndrew did this. He ran up to here and he promptly stopped. And he spent all 20 of the 20 seconds to clear, deciding whether he was allowed to step over, even though he was being covered by an attackman. And so McAndrew, who's like a 6'4" stud, who's very mature for his age, right, was absolutely demolished by Maddox, who he has about 100 pounds on. McAndrew. And you're supposed to be the brains of the operation, McAndrew. Okay. Now, if it's not there, okay, let me erase a bunch of stuff. Okay, if it's not there, this or that. Okay, we run the stretch and it's not on this side. Okay. I shouldn't have done it this way. Okay, if it's not on this side, right? We ran the stretch, it's not on this side. We want the ball to go over here. So this guy's gonna come back, we're gonna unstretch, we're gonna contract, we're gonna shrink, right? And I want this guy to stretch. Now, I think it's a little bit dangerous to try and throw that pass. Now, some teams are, especially if they're good at bumping, they're gonna make you throw that pass, okay? But I haven't seen one in all my years at Mater Dei. So I think that we need to bang the ball here, okay? And this guy finds an open area where he can see you, and he's going to throw this ball right to you, and we have now cleared the ball, okay?
So an important part on that, yesterday, Monday, was that guy. And he
Who
recognized.
was that guy? Who was that guy? Which of these, him or him?
The rest of me.
Yeah,
Monday was the midi with the attackman on him in the 2 spot.
okay, so this was Monday.
And he steps over and he recognizes he has the attackman. And then the ball was on the other side of the field, so Monday started running to the other side of the field. Right? And he was just running into coverage. So if you have the attackman in the 2 spot, step over and call for the ball. You're open, stay there.
I mean, you should be doing jumping jacks. Here, me, this side, two, whatever it is, right? And remember, right? A lot of times I'll like, did you say anything? And you're like, oh my God, I said so. And I'm like, did anybody hear him talk? And everyone's like, I didn't hear him. I didn't hear him. Like that's, if you talk, right, and no one hears you, that's the same thing as not talking, okay? That's the same thing as not talking, right? If a tree falls in the forest, if you talk and no one hears you, that's not talking, right? And this is where I think part of it is you you need to feel confident with the clear, right? So you're like, I think I'm open. You're like, me. So that way you're kind of saying it. So if I say, did you say it? You're like, oh yeah, I was saying it, right? But then if you're wrong, I didn't hear you saying it, so I don't ask you why you're asking for the ball, right? It's sort of like when I call on, when I talk to PJ and he's like, PJ, did you brush your teeth? And he's like if you ever talk with a mealy mouth, right? Anything that comes out of your mouth is bad, okay? So if he brushed his teeth, he'd be like, yeah, I brushed my teeth. But instead he does this, that means he didn't, right? So don't be a mealy mouth. All right, last thing here, okay? I'm gonna hit undo a bunch more times. Okay, now there's another phenomenon that we saw yesterday. Okay, so the ball is here. Okay, this midi stretches. Okay, this midi stretches. So this midi is a good thing. Now, what's going to happen in a game? This guy is kind of in this tweener zone. Okay, because he's a little too far away to jump, but he can't step over the field. So the only thing that he can do is stand, right, and get as tall as he can. So he's going to hold the stick up, right, and he's going to stand like that, and he's going to try and knock this pass down. So right here, there's a guy that's standing, right? Do you see? I mean, doesn't that make sense? Isn't that what the only thing that he can do at this point, right? That's all he can do is stand there up in the air, okay, and get as big as he can. By the way, this is also what you're supposed to do if you're ever attacked by a hyena, is make sure that you're taller than it. So you hold something up over your head. This hyenas and also coyotes, they won't attack you because the fact that you have something higher than them, right? I wish that was true of bears also. All right, so
Gnats.
So what happens here, okay, is, and this happened yesterday, this guy, that was eraser still, undo, redo, undo. All right. So what happened yesterday was this guy tries to throw a pass to him, okay, and the guy, I think it was Veneri, who's not like 12 feet tall, caught it, and then we're going, it's a jailbreak, okay? So there's a saying that you're going to hear your coaches say quite a bit, okay? And that saying is, get out of his shadow. So imagine, right, that the sun is over here, okay? The sun's over here, okay? And it's casting a shadow right here. So when he has the ball, I don't think it makes sense to keep cutting that way, right? Instead, you want to cut to an area like this that's out of this guy's shadow. So now he can throw you that ball. Now be careful, you can't run to the middle because there's a guy standing there, right? But you want to get out of his shadow, and then this guy moves over, and then you might have to come back to get out of his shadow. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about anything I've taught you? Because that's about it.
Maybe go over, if the slice has the attackman, what the ball side midi should do in terms of stretch.
Okay.
Stretching even though you have a midi on you.
Okay.
Create space.
All right, I understand. Okay, so coach is going over a situation, so I'm going to undo. I probably should just erase it all, right? That's fine. I'll undo. I'll clear out everything. All right. So there's another situation that coach is talking about. Okay, so we're at part 2A. Okay, so the midi's on the field, the LSM is up, right? The box is right here, right? The goalie and the 2Ds. Okay, they're outside the box. Sorry, I shouldn't have put them there. Okay, and I have my midi is still on sides, and this midi is here. Okay, so this is what happens. Where are we? Let me get my eraser going. Okay, so this is what happens. So the ball is right here. Do you want the goalie to have it, coach?
Yeah.
Okay, so the ball is right here. So he makes his slice, okay? And he does his mirror, right? So we have slice, mirror, stretch, stay, okay? So he makes his slice. So what happens is if there's a midi here on the other team, okay? If there's a midi here, God, I wanted to change colors on the other team, okay? As soon as this guy makes that slice and leaves that attackman behind, he's going to come to the middle and try and jump it. Okay? He's going to come to the middle and try and jump it. So if the guy hits his slice towards you, just go over behind him. And now, if that guy jumps you, he's giving up a fast break look. Okay? But one thing about this, you guys have to understand this, right? And you can sit there and make this hard. Look at, it's all about the spacing. Do you see what I'm saying? Like literally, right? We could not have these guys all be scary and be equally spaced. Do you see what I mean? Like we're all trying to get into our own space and respecting each other's spaces. And then all that's coming down to is where is that attackman? Okay, he's got to be here, here, or here. If he's here, it's a 1-pass clear. If he's here and we guess right, it's a 2-pass clear. And if he's here, here, and we guess wrong, it might be a 3 or 4-pass clear. Okay, so when I yell at the attackman for not riding, okay, you have to understand, you could be the best rider. You guys could be vicious, right? You guys could be the best riders in the universe. I could get like Usain Bolt and like 2 NFL safeties. And if the other team is smart and can throw and catch, you might not get the ball once. Okay? You might not get the ball once. Okay? So you have to understand, the one team has 7, the other team has 6. But then you say, what are the odds that they don't throw a ball out of bounds? Or don't drop a ball and give you a chance to jump them? Or don't go off sides? Well, now we're getting pretty small. Okay? So I'm going to do one last thing, and then I'll let the coaches say anything. Then I'll give you a question and answer period. So I was thinking of a funny story. So here's Coach Kubik, okay? And here's Gallagher's uncle, whose name is Danny Gladding, okay? So this is hilarious. Danny Gladding, he was the first freshman to ever make varsity at prep. And so Danny Gladding was here. And he has the ball, and it's a restart. So in other words, we were playing Landon, and they're doing something wrong. And so Danny Gladding had a guy right here, and it's dead ball. So it looks like this, right? So there's a prep D, prep goalie, prep D, right? Prep midi. We actually, because it was dead ball, we got a midi on, right? Prep midi. Okay, so this is what Danny Gladding was looking at. And the ball's dead. So here's the official right here. Okay, so I see in this, I don't know who it was, right? But I mean, I knew every player on Landon, and I'm like, and Danny's only like 16. So I'm like, Danny. And he looks at me, and I'm like, Danny, that's an attackman. Okay, Danny, that's an attackman. So all Danny had to do, okay, was throw the ball to this defenseman, step over the field, and that defenseman would throw it back to him. That's all Danny had to do. Do you guys understand? Right? It's a 2-pass clear. We practiced it all the time. Okay? But I was kind of worried, right? Just because he was a sophomore and, and it's the Landon game, right? And there's like 10,000 fans there. And I'm like, he's going to poop himself. I'm like, Danny, he's an attackman. Okay? And so he looks at me, he's like, gotcha, coach, gotcha. So this is what Danny Gladding did. He takes the ball and he throws it as high as he can into the air so that it's going to land right here. So he literally throws the ball 40 feet in the air. And then while it's in the air, he steps over and then he catches it right here. Right? It was a 1-man clear because he knew once I told him that guy was an attackman, he knew that he couldn't step over with it. So he threw it like 40 feet in the air, stepped over, and then caught it on this side and it was a 1 pass clear instead of a 2 pass clear. Okay? But that's a guy who, I mean, you wouldn't know to do that unless you had, well, 1, balls of steel, and 2, incredible lacrosse IQ. Okay? So things that I'm missing, Coach Smith.
Yeah, goalies, I would say, we've talked about it before, but you guys have to make sure that you are always on the ball side hash mark when the ball is with one of the defensemen. Because if they're running this ride, it does 2 things, right? If they're in this ride, it makes that attackman that's bumping's job really hard because he's got a lot more ground to cover. Plus, if they do throw it to the goalie, the midfielders still know what side the ball is on. If you're standing directly in the middle, I think Aguiar, you got yelled at this the other day. Maybe it was long ago. But someone was standing directly in the middle, and neither of the box or 2 middies knew who could step over.
Yeah, so this happens sometimes, like when the 1 got it in the clearing drill, right? So if the ball's in the middle, which side do we stretch? Right? Which side do we stretch? I don't know. Right? Should I go or should I go? So what coach is saying is if you drag to one side or the other, well, now clearly the goalie is telling you that that's the ball side.
And then put the attackman on the D and an attackman on the goalie.
Okay. I'm going to just clear it off. So,
I mean,
all right, so it's D with the ball and D with the ball and goalie. So where should the goalie stand? Coach is saying he should be very heavy, like to the, at least to the 3rd part. Okay. And the reason he's doing that, I mean, part is what coach said, but the other thing is, right, if the 2 middies are riding, look how far he's making that guy run by just overplaying. Is that what you want me to show?
yeah.
Okay.
So they throw it over, he's got to run that much further. If he decides not to cover you and he's going to cover the defenseman, then it gives you that much more time to be open.
And that goes to what I was telling the D-man. Like a lot of times on your breakouts, I yell at you because you stop here. Well, if you stop here, this guy now doesn't have to run as far. My point is, why don't you just go all the way till your heels are almost on the thing? Now he's got to run 20 more yards. That's more time for you to find the open man, right? So the bigger the field is, the harder it is on the attack. Just like on offense, the bigger the field is, the harder it is on the offense, on the defense. Coach, am I missing anything that you can think of, Coach Ober? All right, does anybody have any questions? All right, so I am going to, I recorded, I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel. And there's a lot more things to it than this. This is only on like a basic 3-3 ride, right? We can do some funky stuff, okay? So maybe, but we have to be able to run the clear first, all right? So again, if you're confused, please ask questions. Please email me questions, okay? Please watch the video again. I mean, I'm going to post it, make the Churchill kids watch it. Yes, Peter White.
In the clear, the attackmen down below that are placed there, how are they gonna be moving around at all, or?
Okay, so the attackman, this is what the thing is for the attackman. You want to be as far away as you can be. So we're not going to get into 10-mans. We're not going to get into sort of these soft 10-mans. Like there's really tricky things that guys can do. Okay. But so let's say your D-man is on you here. Okay. All right. So then you take another step. And the D-man is like, you know what? I'm close enough. Right. Because the D's figuring by the time they throw that pass to you, you're going to be wide open. I mean, he's going to be able to get there. So you want to be as far down as the D-man will honor you. And then if he doesn't follow you anymore, stop. Do you understand? Now, the only thing you might want to be mindful of is when they do their slice and mirror, right? Maybe this guy gets a little deep and then maybe you need to kind of get out of his way, right? So that your guy doesn't leave you and go jump the guy that's playing heavy, okay? And I will say for these 2 attackmen right here, your D-man is gonna leave you right here and right here. Okay? And so I want this attackman to be all the way here in the corner. And if at any time in the clear, you're like, I don't know what's going on, this is crazy, you know, I think we're at about 17 seconds, okay? Then you want to dump it to the corners, okay? And that will actually be to our advantage because the D-man's not going to be right on him. Last thing about that. So I used to call that full field pass a Gilman, okay? And so I'm like, Gilman, Gilman, Gilman. And everyone in the universe calls a Gilman a full field pass, right? So, but then we started playing Gilman. And I felt really weird yelling Gilman against Gilman. Okay. So in upstate New York, they don't call it Gilmaning the ball. They call it cheap it. So I don't say Gilman, I say cheap it. Okay. And cheap it means dump it into the corners. Doesn't matter which one. And the thing is, it's a 50-50 ball. So if we're having a tough time clearing, I figure 50-50 is better than 0. Okay, good question, Peter White. Surprisingly, I was prepared for the worst.
And then also,
Peter has another one.
You have another question?
I was gonna say also, if you're D-man, if you're the attackman right on the crease and your D-man and one of the middies gets clear and it's running down with the ball and your D-man jumps him, should you just yell like a maniac for the ball?
I think that would be a great idea, Peter White. Anybody else have any questions? Did you learn something today, Carter McAndrew?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question, Carter McAndrew. Does the man in the one spot, does he have any responsibility to stay on sides?
No.
None. 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 Ever. Okay? You got that, Carter McAndrew?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right, you guys, there's a lot of information here. And I'll be honest with you, even though it's week 5 and even though we have another hurdle to go over, okay? I do think every year I dreaded the first day of clearing. It was kind of a famous thing. Like, it was like, all right, today's the day, clearing. So you guys will be very good at this by the end. Or I will have a massive heart attack and die. And I just want to warn you, when I feel the chest pains, Connor Lee, I'm going to come over and snap your neck because I'm not going out alone. Okay? You got that, Connor Lee?
Yes.
I have it. I've been watching a lot of Arnold movies. Okay. All right, you guys. I probably should have put that on the film. Peace. We're done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.